So the origin of the ultra-Orthodox population in Israel, the term was adopted in 19th century, late 19th century Europe by religious Jews who separated themselves from an increasingly distinct secular Judaism. After the Holocaust, a new type of Jewish community known as the Ultra-Orthodox evolved in Western Europe, the United States, and Palestine, later to become the State of Israel. And the main distinguishing feature of which was its strong communal identity and desire to isolate itself from the rest of society. And these communities were governed by a centralized religious leadership that determined every aspect of their way of life, from the study methods and curricula in their schools to the character of their public spaces. At the time of Israel's establishment in 1948, the openly secular Zionist movement dominated the country's politics and public institutions, causing the ultra-Orthodox, who weren't that many at that time, to regard the state as a threat to their way of life. They therefore resisted state policy on every front, leading to geographic isolation, an autonomous educational system, and established their own set of institutions. The one we're about to talk about, is just one of them, a very main one. They gained considerable political power over the years. It really started in 1977, when there were just 4% of the population then. Today, they're 13.5%. In that year, there was a big change in the Israeli politics. The Ultra-Orthodox Party, the small one, joined the government for the first time since 1952. And Ultra-Orthodox men began opting out very fast of the labor market, manifesting their ideal of lifelong religious studies. Since then, they chose to take advantage of their political power and of Israel's social welfare policy, living very modestly and developing a strong communal support institution within their communities. Thanks to their unified vote and organized representation in the Israeli parliament, known as the Knesset, they had considerable political influence. Although preferring right-wing parties due to their conservatism, the ultra-Orthodox parties are willing to join a coalition with any partner that offers them financial support and respects their desire for isolation, in particular, independence of their educational system and their continued exemption from the military service, a very hot topic in Israel today. As I said, there are about 13.5% of the Israeli population, and they grew up very, very rapidly, exponentially, because their birth rate is around 6 children, sometimes some years 7 children per woman since the 80s, whereas the secular Jewish women average around 2.5 children each, which is way higher than what you know from what you experience in Europe, but definitely lower than the ultra-Orthodox birth rates. There are over 200 communities in Israel of ultra-Orthodox Jews, but in general, they are divided to 3 main branches or sects. The first one is, there are not of equal sides. The Sephardic are the biggest, but they're often regarded as the thirds, 3/3. So the first one is the Ashkenazi, that is of European origin, Lithuanians. The second is the Ashkenazi Hasidic, and the third is the ones that came from the Middle Eastern and North African countries, that is Arab countries and Iran. And they were not ultra-Orthodox. It's a European phenomenon, but later they were mostly religious, or most of them were just traditional. But once they arrived in Israel, hundreds of thousands of them after the first years of the country, after Israel inception, they were approached mostly by the Lithuanians, and they were influenced, and they became a version of ultra-Orthodox. In 1981, they started their own party, which is half of the voters are ultra-Orthodox, Sephardic. And so they're part of this community, big community in Israel. Okay, sorry. The Gmach is a unique charitable organization. It is prevalent in the ultra-Orthodox community. In every community, there are a few Gmachs. I'll explain what it is. It is a volunteer-run institution which provides goods and services free of charge, and it incurs minimal operational costs because it's based on volunteers. And it's quite amazing. It's actually like what we know in modern times, the sharing economy. This went on many, many years ago in the ultra-Orthodox community. For example, a family, an Orthodox family, let's say living in Jerusalem, wishes to go on the weekend to Bnei Brak, looking for accommodation. They can find it they can find a host through a Gmach. A host would mean that another family will host them, or another family just left their house, let's say going somewhere else, and let them use their house. And they themselves will later potentially offer their own house, maybe at the same Saturday or a different weekend, but they don't have to. Or let's say you're an individual, you need a particular appliance, let's say a stroller or folding chairs for an event you hold. You can get it from the Gmach, and the Gmach has it either because people donated money or donated the appliance, but very often they just don't need the appliance at that time. So they let the Gmach use it, give it for free to other people, and when they want the asset back, the appliance back, they ask it from the Gmach, and it is given back to them. So this is really a classic sharing economy. You have an asset, you don't use it, so you let someone else use it, and you do it through the mediation of the Gmach. Everything is free of charge. A very important type of Gmach is one that gives give loans, which are free, interest-free loans. Now, there are other free interest loan associations in Israel, not in the ultra-Orthodox community, and also worldwide. But to the best of my knowledge, none of them is based on interest-free deposits. It's only in the ultra-Orthodox community. What it means is that they treat it just like an asset, just like we said, the stroller. And so you don't need it, you put it in the Gmach, someone else can use it, and then when you need it again, you take it back from the Gmach. So do the ultra-religious treat money. Let's say for now they have money, they finished the month, and they see they have some money that they can put aside. So they just, instead of putting it in the bank, they give it to the Gmach, and the Gmach lets others use it, for their own use, that it's borrowed, and there is no interest. And when the people that made this deposit want it back, they just ask for it back, and then the Gmach gives it back to them. Everything without interest, there is no income involved. And it's all done because of this desire to do a good deed. We'll talk about it soon. So there are hundreds of deposit-based Gmachs in Israel, and it accumulates to huge sums of money. Most of them are small. Many of them, the majority of them, are in the range of 5 to 20 million shekels, meaning that they don't have money of their own at all. It's all the depositors' money. But when I say in the range of 5 to 20 million shekel, a euro is about 4 shekels. So that is, a shekel is a quarter of a euro. So when we're talking about this range, it means that this is the total amount of loans extended by them at any given time. But there are some gmachs, several gmachs, hundreds that have much higher ranges of loans, hundreds of millions. And there are at least two that it's a trillion, over a trillion. So they can be quite substantial. What motivates the person that founded the gmach, and usually is the manager. Later on, maybe someone else manages it. Some gmachs go on for many, many years. So it is a religious thing. It was already mentioned in the conference, a mitzvah, a good deed, or as you said, obligation. And the religious Jews, definitely Ultra-Orthodox Jews, they want to accumulate this kind of good deeds, all kinds of good deeds. And this is a very good deed because it really helps lots of people. You know, it's great to get the ability to borrow money without paying any interest. As I will talk soon, it really is a very, very important part of the economics of the ultra-Orthodox household and small businesses. So they do it because they want to do a mitzvah, and also because it gives them a social status. It's an important institution in the community, so the person who founded it, manages it, has a very high social status. So these are the reasons they do it. They don't get paid usually. If they do, it's very modest, but often the classic gmach, they don't get paid. They do it just for these two reasons. Now, when you take a loan, then you need to bring, you don't have to have any collateral, but you need to bring two people who will guarantee you. I mean, in case you don't pay. And everybody is from the community. So people know each other. I mean, the manager knows exactly who the people are. If it's from another community, then the manager must have connections, and they always have connections to find out. They have all the information. They know the people personally. So why should someone guarantee for someone else that? Most of them are poor people. I mean, they don't have much money because they have many, many kids, and the men hardly work, and they don't get the proper education that would allow them to participate in the labor market, even if they do. And the women work, decent work. They usually don't have careers. So they're a poor population. This is why they need so much this sharing economy practices, because they help each other. And this way they improve their standard of living without any external funds. Of course, there are external funds from the rest of Israel, but they do much better than they would have done if they hadn't have all these sharing economy institutions, charitable organizations like this one. So the guarantor, first of all, he's also, I'm saying he because it's usually run by men in the ultra-Orthodox community. All this is usually you see lines of men standing to get the loan, or they do it. The women are the bread providers in the ultra-Orthodox community. The men study. The women are the ones that actually run everything. They are the ones who work and provide for everybody, but the men are the ones that do all these kind of things. So I'm saying he. So the guarantor is interested in doing this mitzvah, and also often, it's just a relative of his, or a friend, or student, or a rabbi. So this is why they are willing to be a guarantor. And the manager does a very good job, because they pick the person not because as a guarantor, not because that person has a deep pocket that is rich, but because the debtor is in this kind of a relationship that he will feel horrible if he makes the guarantor pay instead of him. So they rely on this, huge transaction cost, emotional transaction cost, so that the depositor will definitely pay because they wouldn't want the guarantor to be held liable in case he doesn't pay. They may have debts to all kinds of commercial businesses. They will not pay them because they can't, they're very poor, and they're bankrupt, whatever. They will always pay the gmach because they don't want the guarantor to bear it. Now, what motivates the depositor? People that come and put the money in the gmach, this money will later be lent to others and they get no interest. Nobody gets the interest income. So why do they do it again? They want to do a good mitzvah. But when it comes to the depositor, there is also another benefit. We're talking about poor families, or at least definitely not wealthy. So in case they have money, and let's say they they keep it home, immediately it will be used for very important reasons. Lots of kids, this one need this one need that, they need it for food, etc. Nothing will be left. They can put it in the bank, but today, already for many years, each ultra-Orthodox household has at least two people that have this card that they can withdraw money from the bank. And it's done immediately, so they will do it. But when they put the money in the gmach, they tell the gmach's manager, I do it because I want to save for the holiday, for Sukkot or Pesach. It's usually a big expense. Or for a bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah or wedding or buy an apartment for the child. So they state it. Then, when they want to withdraw the money, they need to go to the gmach, physically go to the gmach, and the gmach manager will probably ask them, because it's written what they took it for. What happened? Why do you create it? Did you withdraw it? And they will have to explain. It's not that the manager will not give them the money. He will, but there is this transaction cost, and this helps them save. Of course, they save nominal amounts. I mean, in times of inflation, it's horrible. But even when there is no inflation, there is some inflation. And anyway, there is the value of money. Even if there is no inflation, there is some interest. This they give up. But nevertheless, they save. They save the principal this way. Now, I'll stop for a second and I'll continue. But now I'll answer some of Corinna's questions related to this conference about the things that we already talked about. So why do the ultra-Orthodox, what do they need the gmach for? I mean, there are state institutions that help people save money for all kinds of reasons. Well, the reason is that, the government always encourages a charitable organization. That's exactly it. I mean, it is a situation in which there is a philanthropic activity. It's a gift. There's always a shortage of this kind of behavior because this behavior creates a positive externality, meaning that the person, the donor, he knows why he's doing it. He gets some kind of a benefit from it. Maybe in the literature, it's called the warm glow and reoni. It gives the person, the donor, a good feeling. Maybe this good feeling is because that person, the donor, knows that the recipient will benefit from it, will enjoy it. Still, psychologically, all we look at is the donor. No one in society considers the benefit that the recipients get from the gift. It's only through the donor's eyes. This is why if there's a shortage, that's a situation of positive externality. So the government should, in this case, interfere, give some kind of a tax benefit or other benefit to induce people to give more gifts, to do charitable activity. And this is just one example, a very important example. So the government should be for it, but there's always naturally there is not enough of it, of this kind of behavior. So the ultra-Orthodox, because they want to do mitzvahs, They get this kind of, instead of a tax benefit, they get this kind of religious benefit, and they do it. So that's great. And of course, the state should be happy that they're doing it because it increases their welfare. They're part of society, so it increases overall welfare, and it even helps people outside the ultra-Orthodox community in Israel because anyway, we support them because they're so poor and we have a welfare policy. So if they also help each other, it makes the burden of us a bit lighter. So overall, it's a positive thing. But there are certain risks that requires government regulation. Mostly, the government felt that because this is the depositor-based, then maybe we should protect the depositors because they expect to get paid. The principal, no interest, but the principal, they want it back. And there is a possibility of fraud and tax evasion and money laundering. We'll talk about it now. So the government was always concerned what will happen with the depositors, what happens if the people who took loans do not give them back, and the Gmach doesn't have money, and the depositors do not get back are not getting paid back. This is not a valid concern because it almost never happened. In the very rare cases it happened, just 2 or 3 cases in the history of the Gmach in Israel, the community organized and the depositors got paid back because they really want to protect these institutions. And the Gmach managers are just very, very good in picking the right guarantors. They're relentless in collecting the money. This is their reputation. So it's not a valid concern. But money laundering, maybe it's possible. It's very difficult to know how, because usually when you do money laundering, you have some money that you got illegally or didn't pay taxes on it, and you put it in some kind of a business, and which is not making necessarily any profit. But later you say, this is your argument, that the money originated from that business. Okay, and this is how you whitewash the money. Here it can't happen because let's say you have money, you donate it to the Gmach, you make a deposit, okay, but then when you want to use it, you need to ask it back from the Gmach. So again, you have the money, and it's not being cleaned. So it's not easy. It's not clear why there is this fear of money laundering, but this was definitely a concern of the government, and I can think, of course, that if the Gmach manager will be very corrupt, it could happen. But the Gmach managers do not have an interest in being corrupt. This is not why they do it, and they don't want. Why should they risk themselves? I mean, they provide a service, and they do it. They get their mitzvah and their status. They're not criminals. So it's unlikely that they do money laundering. About tax evasion, again, if someone doesn't pay taxes, but then that person puts the money in Gmach, it doesn't help him because later he will get the money back, and again, he will have the money that he never declared taxes on. And there's no tax evasion in the Gmach itself because there is no income. There's no interest, there's no income. So, but the government was worried, and for good reason. Because the government may be wrong about this concern about the depositors, but it uses the banks or any financial institutions to gain a lot of information about the business activity of people, the income. So they do find tax evasion and money laundering through all this information they get. Because if someone, let's say, makes a huge deposit in the Gmach, then if the government knows about it, then it can ask questions. Where did this money come from? How could this supposedly poor person have all this money that he deposited in the Gmach? And the banks, of course, they have to report. But the Gmachs didn't want to report. They said, no, we're charitable organizations. Don't force us to burn our depositors. Why should we?
2 minutes.
Should we tell them about the
Yoram?
government about them? Excuse me?
Sorry, you're about 2 minutes more
Okay,
for
I'm
your
sorry,
paper.
so I'll speak. So this was the major concern, and the government refused. Now the government was unwilling to, because they have a lot of political power, they were unable to persuade them to do it. And then FATCA came, the US came in 2010. They enacted this law. The Israeli banks were affected by it. They wanted to close the Gmach's account because they were afraid of the Americans. So the Ultra-Orthodox, the politicians put pressure on the state of Israel. It reached an agreement in the US, but it only gave them a few years to settle the issue. So a legislative process began. Not because the Israeli government did not have the power, but the private banks had. I mean, the US had and used the private banks in Israel, and they put pressure, and a legislative process began. I was deeply involved in it. I was sort of a mediator. It was very interesting to me. I did it voluntarily, and we don't have a lot of time to talk about it. But what I learned from this amazing process I was very fortunate to be part of is that there was huge suspicion on both sides. And the main mistake that the government did in trying to regulate it was that it was done what's called top-down. First, they drafted the law. They just did a copy-paste from banking laws and enforced it on the Gmach. It had no relevance to the Gmach because, let's say, they wanted the Gmach manager to study either law or economics or accountants. These people, they learn, they're ultra-Orthodox. They don't learn these subjects at all. They barely know math. So they can do their job very, very well. They're expert in this, but they don't have any official, formal education. They wanted all kinds of things like accountants, etc. All these things cost a lot of money. The whole idea of the Gmach is that it doesn't cost any money. There's no operational cost or very little. So this would have completely ruined this very good phenomenon. Charitable organizations that are very important to the community, they would have all collapsed. So the whole process, it took a very, very long time, a few years, in which we all worked on adjustments of the bad work that was done, legislated in the beginning. Another thing is, and this was the fault of the Ultra-Orthodox, is they kept using their political muscle. Instead of just, agreeing that we should, negotiate very hard and reach a good solution, which is good, for maximizing overall Israeli society's welfare, they kept on using their political power to try to force the government, what they wanted. And of course, the government was worried and didn't yield back. So this also took a long time. In the end, we have, since January 1st, 2019, we have a law which is a really compromise, the kind of compromise that each side felt very, distressed about. Let's say we wanted to have a conference after this. No one wanted to participate because from the side of the government, they were worried that their peers would say, oh, you were really soft on the Ultra-Orthodox, you gave them whatever they wanted. And on the Ultra-Orthodox side, they were really afraid of their constituents that would say, wow, you agreed to be regulated. Now we're regulated because of you. How could you do this horrible thing to us? So both sides were not happy about the compromise, which usually means that the compromise was just right. Okay, thank you very much.